Hello everyone. Today we are talking about death and what happens to us when we die. And also, who handles that when we die? What if I'm scared about it? What if I'm overwhelmed with the idea that I'm going to have to plan all this? Sometimes we can plan it, other times it's accidental. It wasn't our fault, someone else did it to us. Either way, someone has to help us sort this out. That's where our friends the morticians come in. And morticians have been around for as long as people have been dying. They went by the term undertaker, gravekeeper, more modernly now funeral director. You might have also heard the term embalmer. But for today's purpose, we'll use mortician as our overall umbrella term. Fun fact, the term mortician comes from the Latin word mort, which means death, and itian, which means to be an expert. So in their case, they're an expert of death. Now, morticians do help with, of course, setting up the body, getting everything prepared, proceeding with the funeral. But something that they don't really talk about as much is that they help with the idea of giving that person more control. Now, morticians don't always show up right at the worst moment ever where you're already dead. Sometimes people end up actually seeing them well ahead of time. This can be seen in the idea of end-of-life planning. So some people, as we plan for things like retirement, maybe going to college, buying a house, we want to plan for the end just the same. An article published by Callahan Mortuary and Livermore Crematory stated, end-of-life planning helps by giving people a voice as they discuss their last wishes with their loved ones. Once you're gone, you don't really have a say anymore. So having it already in place gives you that control. Your loved ones can't really change too much because it's already in movement. It's already happening. Now, death is scary. We can't control it. We don't know when it's happening, and most people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to discuss it with their loved ones of, hey, when I die, this is what I want to happen, because that's a sad topic. So who do we talk to? Morticians can help us with that. Now, what does it take to be a mortician? Morticians have to go through quite a lot of rigorous training. This includes having an associate's degree with mortuary science, also a 12-year apprenticeship at a funeral home, and then also a state licensing test that they have to complete. Now, that makes sense considering that they are working with something that's really, really important to our society, day in and day out. This job might be considered pretty hectic as it's on call all the time. You can't, again, control when someone dies, so if it's the middle of the night, guess where you're going. When they're in school, they're taking classes like biology, chemistry, business, and even a couple host classes. Now, this is a kind of interesting career because it can work for an extrovert and an introvert. Now, if you're more introverted, you might like the idea of going strictly to embalming and crematory. Now, this kind of limits how much interaction you have so much with the actual funeral service itself. This is going to be more you dealing with the deceased loved one, making sure that they look presentable for their final appearance. They're going to be looking into things like restorative makeup. Fun fact, this makeup actually is meant to go on cold skin, not warm skin. So being able to restore something like that is important. Also, just restorative in general for things like an accident or just a bad way to die. We got to fix you up. Now, if you're an extrovert, you might like the idea of being a funeral director. Now, this is kind of the worst way of being an event planner. This is the biggest event of someone's life, but it's at the end that they don't even really get to enjoy it too much. So, that being said, you do still have to deal with the family themselves. So you're taking somebody who's going through a really terrible loss and helping guide them through that. That takes a lot of skills, a lot of guts, and you have to have a lot of skills in such, hosting. An article by Indeed actually stated that practicing public speaking can help morticians increase their interpersonal skills, because sometimes you are asked to give eulogies or to speak to those who have gathered here. So you can't really do that if you're too shy. Now, once they've completed school, they've picked what path they want to go into. How much do they make? This is somebody who deals with kind of the worst in society of us dying and having to put us back together, giving us a good send-off and helping the family. You would think they'd make a lot of money, considering this is so important. However, according to Indeed, the typical salary range from $29,000 to $89,000 per year. That's a big gap. Now, this could depend on low population versus a high population for how much work they're taking in. In my case, I thought this job was pretty cool, as I like most things spooky. I also kind of like the idea of being able to separate from a lot of people and just work in a quiet environment, but also being able to help someone who's going through a pretty great loss. They might need somebody there for them. Just a calming voice who has nothing to gain except to be there for them. In my case, I attended a funeral earlier this year for my grandmother, who passed in July. Now, the funeral directors there helped us decide everything from the background to the prayers selected to who is listed, and also all the logistics. Now, this includes what time service was, to what speeches are happening, and are we following in a hearse, are we in the limo, where is the immediate family sitting, when is lunch after. This is all logistics, and I didn't want to deal with any of it. Obviously, my whole family was grieving at this time, so I don't want to decide when things are happening or where I'm supposed to go. I just want to be directed to where I'm going. And thankfully, to the morticians that were there, they made sure it was a smooth, seamless process. And that, you can't really put a price on that. And I think that that's a great job to have, to be able to help someone in the end. Thanks.